Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razak at CMTrading. Today is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day 2023. So looking at the highlights of today, we're watching the U.S. markets roar back to their resistance highs. But first, looking at the major economic events of today. So at 3:30 South African time, we've been waiting for this number for quite some time. It's a CPI number. It's a core price index number. If you check out my Facebook page, you'll see a whole list of things that are so important about it, but that is coming out at 3:30 this afternoon. So looking at the markets first, at the Forex symbols, we're watching the US dollar retreat versus the major pairs. And as we look at the indices, the Dow Jones to resistance and the NASDAQ also pops. Looking at commodities, gold and oil unchanged. While looking at stocks, Microsoft lifted the markets higher yesterday. And lastly, Bitcoin unchanged. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So here we go. We're looking at the USD, Euro USD, and you can see quite clearly the dollar settling at this 107.33. Not a big settle, not a big retreat for the US dollar, but nonetheless a retreat, at least in the short term. Now looking at the GBP USD, that bounce took a little bit bigger of a turn from 120.50-ish level to 120.47. That's a decent move for the GBP USD on the upside, strengthening versus the dollar. Now looking at the Japanese yen, this is the other one, and this is at resistance at 132, and you could see that quite clearly. I'm going to highlight it so you could see it quite clearly. It did retrace at that resistance level 132 to 131, and that is a telltale sign that we are still trading in a range, at least for the short term, for the US dollar. Now looking at the commodities, not much doing here. I mean, all intents and purposes, the gold has really been unchanged, 1859 to 1860. Crude oil also just settling at $79 after hitting that $80 resistance also. Okay, that was close enough to $82, I guess, and didn't give us that final push higher. But we're still trading in a range when it comes to oil, which is all good, okay, but just be aware of it. I mean, this has really been since November between $82 and $72. And until it breaks out from one of those two parameters, we're going to still continue trading in that range. Now, looking at the U.S. markets, the Dow Jones rallying back, big rally yesterday to 34,241 at the top of that range. And today's going to be a telltale sign whether or not the inflationary report is going to subside and we're not going to push even higher. Now, looking at the NASDAQ also did get that flop up, okay, as we're looking at it. But it's only Microsoft that really pushed higher. I mean, Microsoft had a big day yesterday after a gap up and then capitulated at that resistance. So yeah, it went up, but it didn't end up on its highs. It didn't push higher than its resistance. So I'm a little bit biased to think maybe we're just waiting for this number. Maybe they're just pumping it up before a dump. And that has happened in the past, so just be aware of it. Now, Facebook also had a decent day. Meta yesterday had a decent day on the upside after going down to 175 to 179. But remember, we're about, $20 away from our 197 resistance, so that's a breather there. Now, looking at Bitcoin trading at 21,754, really from day to day unchanged, okay? Nothing really happening when it comes to Bitcoin. Now, those of you who are interested to trade the core price index at 3:30 today, just be aware. Make sure to put a stop limit, make sure to know your levels, your support, your resistance, and make sure also that if there are any surprises that you act accordingly. That means make sure that you also are apportioning your account size to the type of trade that you're taking. Okay, take those things into effect. If you haven't traded it before, you might want to just sit on the sidelines and just watch it and just to experience that experience of seeing such a big number coming out. This is Fred Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.